Welcome to another episode of Wholesome Thinking. The main objective of our conversations is to challenge people's minds and stimulate wholesome thinking by utilizing the gifts that God gave us. This platform is inspired by scriptures, spiritual journeys, perspective, and life. It's important to us that we highlight these conversations to help encourage others on their journey and provide perspective. In 2 Peter chapter 3, it says, "Dear friends, this is now my second letter to you. I have written both of them as reminders to stimulate you to wholesome thinking." If you ever want to join us on Wholesome Thinking, please let us know. I'm on some of our social media platforms such as YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram, and we'll be happy to have you. Our main rules on this platform are commitment, creativity, no cursing, prayer, and no judgment. Appreciate everyone for tuning in to episode 8. Today, I'm here with the whole team again, JG, Rashad, and Spence. What's up, fellas? How y'all doing this week?
What it do, fellas? What it do? Super Bowl week. We got 2 Philly fans in the here tonight. Hey,
I got the Philly
word. Here
Cup.
we are.
Oh
We
my
here.
goodness.
I'm
Oh,
rooting for y'all this
man.
time.
Yes,
I'm
sir.
rooting for y'all. I'm
Game
on y'all
week.
side.
See,
Appreciate it, Spence.
Spencer ain't a real Cowboys fan because I'm rooting for the Chiefs. I cannot root for the Eagles to
Oh
win.
my
Ain't no
gosh.
division rivals. But what's up, fellas? I'm happy to be here.
I thought we were doing a pod together in unison. Y'all
No.
supposed to be for us, bro, not
No,
against
see,
us,
the
bro.
podcast is recording today. The game is on a different day. We doing this together. We ain't in unison on these Eagles, though.
Boy,
JG, they get
Man.
crazy on us, man. It's cool. It's cool.
getting crazy.
I know we're ready for Sunday, 6:30. Everybody tune in. I already know what's about to happen. Saquon birthday, man. But anyways, appreciate everybody again for tuning in to episode 8. Today we're talking about the process of growth for us individually, as we always talk about, and how it impacts others. More so to speaking on different things that vary while you're in the process of growing. Sometimes it does become frustrating because you want people to go with you while you're growing, and you may be outgrowing some people. Sometimes you may be introduced to new people that are helping you on your growth journey. Just being able to highlight some of those things during our conversation today. We definitely expect the topic to go different ways, talking about different variables of growth and how it impacts relationships, whether that may be in marriage, friendships, professional relationships as well, and many other relationships too. And maybe even talking about some of our struggles, individual journey, and our successes as well. I'll actually get us started today. I enjoy this topic just because a lot of the times, especially for me, it's difficult because I truly do believe that everybody can go to the same places. If we all have an understanding about where we all want to go in life, a lot of the times, especially with us four, I'm always individually talking to you guys about kind of what we can work on individually, how I can hold you accountable. And I think we've talked about that on a couple of different episodes as it relates to reciprocation in a relationship too. A lot of the times I think I struggle with being able to understand that I'm outgrowing someone and whether I need to take them with me or whether I believe that it's someone else's responsibility or not, especially within this past year and a month now, just being able to ask for instructions from God on my growth journey and who to take with me and who not to take with me. I have a book that was recommended to one of my best friends, Anthony. We were in Dallas in August or September, and he recommended a book called, it's called Hey God by, I can't remember the author's name. I'll definitely put it in the books and resources section. But pretty much a lot of those prayers in there are talking about just allowing God to open doors that need to be open and closing doors that need to be closed. The more and more I started paying attention to that, it aligns with kind of relationships too. It's not necessarily talking about an opportunity. And I think a lot of times some relationships can hinder our growth process. We try to hang on to a lot as it relates to people that knew us for who we used to be. And it could have been 5 months ago, could have been 5 years ago. They may be impacted negatively because they may only see us in a certain light. And I just want to understand kind of how y'all view that and how y'all deal with that as you're growing throughout the process of life in general.
That's one of the things that I share a lot about with people that I'm working with is understanding the struggles of the growth, right? Because a quote that I've always heard was that a friend loves you the way that you are, but a mentor loves you too much to leave you the way that you are. And sometimes you outgrow people, but people became friends with you because of who you were in that moment. They know you for that person. They don't know you for the person you're becoming. And sometimes you outgrow these people because they're not moving in the same way that you're moving. And that was something that I had to learn too, because I started doing all the different things that maybe not all my friends were doing. And I realized that I started to think differently than they thought, or speak differently than they spoke, or wanted to indulge in different activities than they wanted to. And they started saying things like, oh man, you getting brainwashed hanging out with those people. And I was thinking, I was like, man, maybe my brain needed a good washing. Maybe this was something like this growth development was actually something that I needed, because I'm on a different path now. I'm on a different walk. Because I'm even on the spiritual standpoint, because a lot of those friends that I had at that time that weren't moving the same way I'm moving, maybe we're not on a faith walk or anything like that. And so what was valuable for them and what was valuable for me were like drastically different when I started to change. And so that kind of led me to the 3 day, the 3 hour, and the 3 minute people, where I realized people always move. People aren't always a 3 day person. They may start that way when we're best friends. We always hanging out because we doing the same things. Like, we out in the bars drinking all the time, so we cool. But when I stopped doing that and you still at the bars, we ain't really hanging out as much no more, because that's where we were making our connection. And they think you the one that changed because you actually did. And that's okay. And I love working with people, because that's one of the first things that I try to teach them, is that, hey, it's okay if like your friends or people look at you differently. That's a good thing. That means you're growing and moving on. And if they're not moving on with you, they won't understand. But it's a struggle, because that's your association. That's what you're so accustomed to having. And that was something I had to work on a lot, because I'm like, dang, I used to love kicking it with them. I used to love going out all the time with them. And now here I am working on a business, or working extra hours at the job, or working on developing whatever craft, while they still going out. So to me, it kind of felt like I was like missing out on the fun. But really, it won't fun really. It was just going back to what I used to do. And people have to like learn how to shift that mindset when growing, because it's so hard to, like you said, it's a struggle, because you want people to move with you. Everybody ain't always ready. And so if they not ready to move on, and you moving on, then sometimes they go from 3 day people to a 3 hour person. Or if they were a 3 hour person, they go to a 3 minute person, just because you can't slow down your growth. And so I love that you brought this up, because that's literally one of the first things that I'm always talking about when I'm mentoring people, is like, hey, people are going to look at you differently, and how you respond and react to that is important.
Nah, it is super important. And I think like I get caught up right there dismissing it and feeling guilty and hurrying back real quick. And I think that's what my question would be to you, Shad, in that I love that example and I appreciate you sharing that. But do you think it's, us individually, when you're growing, do you think it's our responsibility to communicate certain things, or does it depend on the situation? And do you just just ignore it when you're outgrowing, or do you try your best to communicate? Because sometimes people just can't understand, and you're almost kind of like draining your energy in a conversation with things of that nature in that realm of conversation.
Yeah, I think there's certain things where you kind of just like, you have to like understand and move on. And there's other times where you can really try to say like, hey, like, I'm on this growth journey. I want you on it with me. Like, for example, like me, Spencer, and Tay have always been a communicate. They've always been 3 day people from the time I met them to today, 14 years now, that they've always been 3 day, because every time that we move, a salute to you, man. Every time that I move, he moves. Or every time Tay moves, we both moving. Like, we are always moving forward. So it was never an issue with my call it the big three. There's never an issue with us with what we're trying to do, because we were always moving forward at the same time. Now, there are people from high school that used to always hang out with us too, or like be in that like circle, but they started focusing and drifting off, and we ain't really hanging out with them as much. Or at least I know I'm not. And like, even though I tried, like some of them I've tried talking to, like, hey man, like, hey, you might want to check this out. Like, listen to this podcast, read this book, man. Like, think about money this way. And they just like, nah, man, I'm chilling. I'm doing this, I'm doing that, YOLO and stuff like that. And it's just like, it's so crazy to think that I can go and tell Spence and Tay that, and they were like, oh, you're right. Let me go look that out. Let me go check this out. Let me go do that. And the same thing when they tell me something, I'm like, oh, yeah, that's cool. Let's figure that out together, because we're all moving towards something. We're all looking at growth and development. So I think it's like, there's some times where you can be like, yeah, I can try to get people on the same growth like idea that I'm on, that'll receive it. But then there's others that just won't receive it. And you can't stress yourself out and limit your growth and try to go back to them if they're not ready to receive it. I kind of like go back to that support episode. Like some people just don't understand like support, or some people don't understand like what growth looks like. And we can just be an example. But like I gotta spend more time with the 3-day people than the 3 hour and 3 minute people. And if they don't understand, then they just have to move to the 3 hour and 3 minute people, because I have a future I want to take care of. I have a family I want to take care of. I got a lot of goals on this dream board next to me that I want to accomplish. And the people that understand it and can help me and empower me, I think those are the people that I want to spend most of my time with. And that's kind of what I've always made sure that I did. It's like having the right association.
I love this topic, and as y'all were talking, my head was spinning, so I tried to jot down my thoughts while y'all talking. But growth for me is my word for 2025, and I mentioned this on the previous episode that there are some areas in my life that I'm trying to grow and get better at this year, that specifically that I'm focusing on. And so, before I go into my dialogue, I have a question for you guys. The people that are not growing with you, and you say you have to, I think, Rail, you mentioned closing that door, and Shah mentioned 3 minute, 3 hour, 3 day people. Do you completely just close that door and cut them off, even though they may be growing, but they're just in a different phase of their life, and they're not in the same stage or season of life you are in, but they're still growing. Your paths are just not aligned. Like I think and Rail, you brought this topic up on one of the Wednesday calls, the highway of life. They're just not on the same highway as you. They're still growing, but they're just not on the same highway as you. For example, marriage. All four of us are married. I have some friends that are not married. They're still growing. They're just not in this phase, a season of life of marriage that I'm in, and focusing on growing that part of my life. They're focusing on growing something else. So do you completely shut that door, even though they're growing, but y'all just not aligned and at the same stages of life, or do you kind of keep that door open?
Struggle with it, bro. I think I would have to say for me, that would be one of my flaws, is that I haven't figured out a way to communicate in them circumstances. So naturally it's going to come off very abrasive and, hey, yo, what happened to Real? Where you at? You know what I mean? And I think, a lot of my friends understand it now, but, I got a lot of examples of that with a lot of my brothers, like even down to like high school. Like I remember like me cutting people off just cause, not in a bad way, but just like, yeah, I'm not doing that. And one of my friends go like, hey, yo, why you stop doing this? Yeah, I wasn't feeling it. And I'm just super communicative and honest about after the fact, but in the moment, there's too much emotional attachment for me. I love people too much. And I think for me, when I know that's my weakness, it's hard for me to indulge in conversations because I know I'm going to naturally just pull back and want to help just because of who I am. And y'all know my personality. Like, that's just really who I am. I'm all about everybody going to the same place so we can be in the same community, let our kids grow up together, X, Y, and Z. But what I'm starting to realize is that God is making me understand that, no, this is something that you actually do need to work on, because it's what I'm doing for you at this time is accelerating you. Like the amount of things that have happened in a year, fellas, is too fast in a way. I wasn't expecting it. And there's so many new people in my life that are helping me stay on track that I almost like, God, thank you. Cause I needed this shift in my life that I didn't know I needed, but I didn't know I was going to grow at this accelerated rate this quickly. So Spence, to answer your question, I would think that's one of the things that I think I need to work on, bro, is just communicating when I'm dealing with that, because it probably is impacting people in a very bad way, but I just love people too much to say what's on my mind. I think more so it's about being real. I don't know how you're going to deal with it if I'm being this real. And y'all know how I get. If I'm being too direct, it could come out crazy, you know? And I'm slowly working on that. And I think that's something that I'm challenging myself this year to kind of work on for real. I just think my friends and brothers and even people that I'm cool with, people that really know me understand that if I'm doing something and you're not hearing from me, oh, nah, he's doing something. Like, he got something going on. And that's what I respect the most. That's when I know somebody really understands what I'm living for. But I do think it's tough for me, Spence. I'm not going to lie.
Shad and JG, y'all can go ahead and answer whichever one y'all want to go first.
Think,
Like,
go ahead,
oh,
JG. Do your thing.
I was going to ask you to run the question back one time.
So basically, Real and Shad mentioned cutting people off in 3 minute, 3 hour, 3 day people, and we all have different phases of our life. So if you see this person they're not in the same season as you, but they're still growing in a different area. They're on a different highway. Their life is heading in a different direction. Do you still just cut them off, close the door, or do you still keep in communication with them, even though y'all are not in the same season or same stage of life,
Yeah,
but they're still growing?
right. I think now I'm less likely to cut people off than I was maybe in the past. And that's something that's just kind of developed over time, on uh, this kind of spiritual rebirth that I've been experiencing. So I kind of take more of an approach of just checking in, a little bit, maybe less frequently than I would. But I think it's just been a natural kind of not being in touch as much as I used to with some people because I'm just busy. Like the things that I was putting to the side to do the things that I was doing and kind of pursue some of the goals that I wanted to achieve and accomplish. Like now, I think I'm more focused on what matters most in my life. And I've kind of reworked my priorities in a way that would kind of reflect the path that I'm on right now. So I'm spending a lot more time with family. The kids have busy schedules now. We try to keep them involved with stuff every season so that they're not just kind of, hanging around. Not, we want them to explore their interests and kind of try new things. So, they keep us busy. We, every weekend it's like we're running all over town and trying to, whether it's gymnastics, basketball, or whatever they got going on, birthday parties, we're making sure that they're active and seeing their friends and trying new things and all of that. More active in the church than I was, just in small groups and in serving within the church, taking on a lot more roles in my job, just looking for opportunities to, help build that community. So it doesn't really leave a lot of time for some of the other stuff that I was doing, where just like, hanging out. And just also one of the biggest things, I don't want to, because I was going to get to this in a minute and maybe we'll come back to it, but just having to redefine what is fun, because the things that I was doing for fun weren't necessarily the most healthy, probably more on the self-destructive side, if we're being honest. So that's a big part of it too. I'm thankful that God has kind of provided me and revealed to me different ways that I could stay busy, so to speak, and not really stay idle or remain idle, that aren't self-destructive, and they have ended up being fun. It was just a matter of just like allowing him to renew my mind when it came to those sorts of things. And it wasn't easy at first, but for sure, I think that it's a natural consequence of this spiritual growth for me, that I've been experiencing and pursuing, is just more involvement with the church, more time spent with my family, more time seeking out ways to build the communities that I'm a part of, which doesn't leave a lot of time for social activities, so to speak.
Yeah, I know exactly where you're coming from with that, JG, because I noticed, especially with my spiritual journey in that aspect, when people were not aligned with some of that stuff and they would indulge in things that were opposite of that, in a sense, it's like, I don't really want to really kick it with you. Like, that's not okay to do. So I get exactly what you mean. Because we're like, you're too busy doing other things now. And that's kind of where people kind of fall off too. But I don't think people are stuck in a box. Like, if you're a 3-day person, you're not always a 3-day person. For example, Spence, if you went off the deep end tomorrow, I'm going to try to help you first, right? But if you like, this is my lifestyle now, you might not be a 3-day person until you like go back to back to that growth mindset, in a sense. But that doesn't mean that someone has moved down to a 3-hour or 3-minute person that they stayed there in my life. Because I've had people that moved down. They used to be a 3-day person, and then I just grew at a level that they weren't ready to grow. And every time we talked, it was always negative. And I was like, hey, I can't keep having that in my life, because I see negative so much differently now. And I communicated less. If I still saw you, it still was up. It was still love, but we just were not hanging out the same way. And then when they started to change and they started to grow, and I started to see they carried themselves differently, and their faith walk got a lot different, got a lot more clear, then I started hanging out with them more, because now I knew I'm protecting myself, right? And I know, especially on the Wednesday calls, we talk about the 3 gates, our ear gate, our eye gate, and our mouth gate. And if you're risking any of those by putting negative into those, I kind of have to limit how much I'm around you because I only want good going in. There's already been so much bad my whole life. I can't keep letting you put more bad in. I have to dilute it with more positive. If you in that season of life where you're not putting the good in for me, then I have to kind of like limit that association, but it doesn't mean it's forever. Like the door's never closed on someone because they may, like you said, they may be on the highway, but they may take an exit and end up next to me at one point. You never know. So it's always like people always are never stuck. Like this is a world where we're always growing until the day we pass away. And so if we can continue to grow and you're growing and maybe not at the same pace, but eventually, like I said, you may end up I maybe look over on the highway and I'd be like, hey, look, there you are. It's good to see you again. And now he's right side by side.
That's real, bro. That's so real. Go ahead, Spence.
And I think the common thing that all of you guys were saying was the point I wanted to nail home is being aware, self-aware of the people, the situations, and the variables that you have in your life, and whether they're hindering you from growing or they're pouring into you and helping you grow. So I appreciate y'all's perspective on that question.
No doubt. I think Jerron and Sha made something very clear, Spence, is Jerron talking about the fun side, but Rashad is also talking about a mindset thing too. And I kind of want to play off that conversation because it's similar, right? It just depends on your mindset, what you used to be around. But Sha, you brought something to our attention last week about having a growth mindset or a fixed mindset. I think that was it. Can you speak a little bit about that? And then Jerron kind of going details about the fun part based on what he's talking about.
Yeah. So right now I'm reading a book called Mindset. It's one of the books that I've picked up, and it's breaking down the difference in a growth mindset and a fixed mindset. And what a growth mindset is in the sense of you're always looking for everything. In every opportunity, there's a way for you to grow or develop, compared to a fixed mindset is someone that's maybe stuck in their ways, or maybe nothing that they don't learn from any situation, or it's somebody else's fault or something like that, right? So kind of applying the growth mindset in the spiritual world could be like you are growing, right? You're growing in your faith, and you're like, hey, like when stuff happens, you're like, okay, how does the Bible help me get better at this? Compared to someone maybe in a fixed mindset, something happens, man, God, why you always do this to me? Instead of like looking at the blessing, like, why is it always me? Why isn't that nobody? Like, it's never, one is never saying, how can I learn from this? How can I grow from this? Instead of being stuck in whatever way that I am, that's causing me to be this way, right? One of the things I used to always hear is that, you know, you're where you currently are because of the way that you always thought. Like if you thought differently, you would be further along in life. But you're right where you are because of how you've always been thinking and how you've always, in a sense, been moving. Whether it's in your career, whether it's professionally, whether it's spiritually, you're right where you are because of how you've always been moving. And so in order for you to change that, you have to grow yourself. But if you're so stuck with, it's not my fault that I'm right here, it's outside forces, or it's God's fault or whatever, and you're not taking accountability for some of the choices that you've made, or have actually taken the decision to learn from some of that, you're always going to be stuck where you are because you're in this fixed mindset. And so this book has been really opening up all different levels of like understanding the growth versus a fixed mindset. I mean, it's been talking about sports, business, parenting, everything. And it's just like, man, just realizing when people move on and have a more prosperous life, it's because they're having this growth mindset compared to people who are always having a fixed mindset. And sometimes like we all have parts of fixed mindsets on certain things, but Spence, you said it earlier. It's the being self-aware and like, okay, I do have a fixed mindset on that. Is there something that I can work on changing? Do I need to get in the word more? Like, what is it? And then I think when you start having that growth mindset, you start realizing, like JG is going to probably talk about, like fun is different. There's different types of fun than the people who are so stuck in like, nah, the only way to have fun is for me to be at the bar on top of the tables wilding out. Like that's the only fun we can have, or me playing sports and, you know, going out drinking or whatever, or who the next girl I'm gonna hit up. Like that's their fun. But fun changes if you have a growth mindset. Fun becomes Bible study groups, community groups, podcasts like this, you know, being at home with family. I have so much fun with my wife, just hanging out with her. And I know, you know what I'm saying? Like I have so much fun, but I know probably a long time ago, I'd be like, man, so we could talk about it in high school, Spence. We used to always go to the Y and hoop, and we'd be like, nah, Fridays for the bros. We hit the Y hooping. Oh. So, and it's just like, it's so crazy that was such a fixed mindset back then. But now I'm like, man, it's just so much more to life than just hooping with the bros. I want to hoop with the bros. I love hooping. I'm not going to sacrifice my marriage or something like that. Just say, nah, that's just how it is. And Caleb, that's how it is. I'm hooping Friday with the bros. Ain't nothing changing. You know what I'm saying? So like, fun gets different. But some people are so stuck with, this is going to be like hooping with the bros is going to be every Friday for the rest of their life.
Yeah, I mean, it really was a period of time where, like, even though I wasn't as involved with some of the stuff that I mentioned a little while ago, I was still very busy, especially coaching and during basketball season, and there wasn't necessarily any more time for social things like getting up with the boys and just kicking it, just catching up, talking. But they were a little bit more frequent then than they are now. And so like when they would happen, I'd be like, man, like this is, I always felt like I underrated that time. And then once I realized like how much fun it was, and again at the time, and just kind of just like free a little bit, and I would like really cherish those times more. But again, when you're growing just as a person, and especially if you're growing spiritually, you start to realize that some of those activities are not really advantageous. What is it? The word says everything is permissible, but not everything is beneficial, right? So like I was just having this conversation the other day too. It was like, the times where God was like, you can do this. Like, if I take something before him, it's just like, yeah, you can, but not everything that is permissible is beneficial. So you got to be able to make that decision. And I think a year or so ago, when I started to really try to get back, be more intentional about being in the Word and getting in prayer and stuff like that, and trying to grow closer with God, I was like kind of legalistic a little bit in my approach, where it was like, okay, I can't do this, and then like this would be disobedient, and so I would kind of try to separate myself as best I could from anything that would maybe lead to that or lead to those things. And then it was like, well, what do I do for fun? Like all of these things that I'm now giving up or trying to stay away from was fun for me. And so I don't really have anything to replace that. And it would be like, this sounds so bad to say out loud, but it'd be like, man, like I was in the Word all morning. Like I want to get back in the Word. Like I'm gonna be in the Word all day. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like I was in the Word for 3 hours this morning, just like on a Saturday morning. It was just, kids was upstairs chilling. I was down here in quiet time, like getting it in with the Lord. Like, you know what I'm saying? And then it was like, come like mid-afternoon, I'm just sitting around twiddling my thumbs, like, what I'm supposed to do, man? Like, so, that was initially opportunities, and still now, opportunities for kind of negative thoughts and temptations to kind of creep in and be like, hey, like when you used to do X, Y, and Z, like that was fun. You were having a good time doing all this stuff, right? And so, one scripture that really helped me with that was take every thought captive and make it obedient to Christ, 2 Corinthians 10:5. And I used to just have to repeat that, because I would have these thoughts and really start to consider, and then be like, hold on, like let me just like make sure. I would have to say it out loud, because it was just one of them things where like the temptation would just be so strong. I would really have to check my thought life for real. And make sure that, if this spiritual journey and growing closer to God is what, is really what I want, like I say I want, then I have to take those necessary steps to make sure that I'm not setting myself back or setting myself up for to backslide, so to speak, and just keep kind of pushing forward towards the goal. But definitely feeling like you're missing out on the fun is a difficult part of it. But another thing that really helped was I listened to, I think it was either a podcast or I read a devotional by Michael Todd, and he was talking about growth in obscurity. And that was really helpful to me, because that's kind of what I was experiencing. I knew that I was growing spiritually. I felt closer to God, and I was learning and taking in all these lessons from the word and from my quiet time with him. But I felt alone a lot of the time. But I would talk about things with my wife, but it was like, it was different. It was different. And I just felt like isolated. And when I heard that sermon, I do believe it was a sermon. When I heard that, it was really encouraging, because he talked about the process of growing in obscurity, so that then when it's time for you to be out in the public or doing whatever God has called you to do, or fulfilling your purpose around people again, you have put the work in obscurity to then be able to faithfully carry out what you're supposed to be doing, your work for the Lord. So I'll have to find that so that we can throw it in the reference. But that was really encouraging and powerful for me at that time.
I definitely find that, JG. I'm thinking while you talking, and it's I remember a conversation I had with my mom, and I had it with my supervisor too. But me and my mom met me for lunch at like Chipotle or something like that. Saying, "Hey Terrell, what's wrong with you? Like something's going on. I could tell you think about something." And I'm like, I'm feeling like I'm starting to get to a place to where I can't relate to nobody. And I feel isolated, like I'm on an island. Like I don't know what this is. I don't know what this actually is. And it's very uncomfortable. And I don't know if I'm depressed or whatever. And she really didn't say anything. She's like, kind of feeling sorry for me in a way, but I was fine. Like I wasn't sad or nothing, but I was like, yo, this is a different air that I'm breathing right now. And I think what's happening in that stage for me was it's time to start creating a new standard and routines and traditions in your life that you may not have ever even had time to think about because you were so consumed doing other things. And I think that's the beginning of growth. It's going to start off very isolated, but while you're continuing to meet the standard every day, stay consistent, be obedient, before you know it, it's people just dropping into your life, encouraging you more. And now it's building momentum. I think me and Rashad literally talked about this today, about somebody just coming, saying something to you and it motivating to you because it's more confirmation of what you're doing. And I think in that beginning stage of when you're about to come out and grow and you're renewed, your mind is renewed and it's almost a rebirth of yourself, it's very isolated, man. Like it just is. It's not a comfortable state because what you're not realizing is that you really can't see what's in front of you when you're growing. Things are just going to start happening if you're meeting a standard every day. And I think I had to really learn that. And it took some time. It's still taking time right now. And I'm just starting to realize that there's certain nuggets on the growth journey that are very unique that you really have to pay attention to a lot of details to catch on that you're growing. When you're doing things that are negative, there's going to be things that affirm you all the time because it's so vague and it's going to be able to make sense. Yeah, of course. Why not? Why not do that? You're saying why not? You're saying not. It's a negative connotation already. You know what I mean? There's no positivity in that. And I think I was reading a devotional last night, pretty much just talking about 88% of our thoughts are already negative. So what we need to do about that, and most of those thoughts are not really coming from, the person that created us. God did not give us those things like that. I think he gave us discernment and choice. And that's very difficult on the growth journey and in the process. And I do think it's like a spiritual warfare, but a warfare in your mind. And I think it's just a battle. But if you're able to win some of those victories and stay consistent, you're going to start realizing that you're having a lot of winning seasons. It's not too many low points going on. It's going to be a low point, but you know that you got somebody else that's going to pick you up and tell you to keep going. And what I mean by small details, I know this was probably in Dallas. I came back. Somebody said, I said, do you have the everybody can't go mentality? Yes or no? Or something like that. That was like the question before the retreat or something. And somebody called me after, was like, hey, do you just want more people on the call? Like, what are you saying? And I'm like, I'm getting to a point where I got to decide if I'm going to wait for people or not. Because now I'm starting to see the visions that God gave me 4 months ago. Stuff is connecting. And I'm like, oh, whoa, I didn't know this was going to happen this fast. And I think when God starts placing people in your life while you're attempting to grow and being obedient and consistent, those people will give you more confirmation that you are doing things appropriately and encourage you. Like, what do you mean you didn't take 5 steps? Like, do you see where you're standing right now? Look down. like look down. Don't just keep walking. Like take a break and just look how far you've come. And being able to acknowledge that moment. A lot of the times on the other side with the fixed mindset, it's just like, can we just go back a couple steps to where we were 20 steps ago? And it's just tough, man. It's tough. So I appreciate you bringing that up, JG, because I really kind of forgot about that phase of my life in the past year that I was experiencing. So I appreciate you.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up too, real, because I think as I'm sitting here listening, it brought me back to the definition of growth. And I think as we're growing and you're experiencing life, your values change, you're developing, you're maturing physically, mentally, and spiritually. So the things that you go through when you have this growth mindset that Shad mentioned, you go through these different challenges, these different setbacks, they change you, they develop you, they help grow you and propel you forward instead of having that fixed mindset where you make excuses and you stay stagnant and you can get complacent. Honestly, complacency can hinder your growth too, where you get to a point and you think that you don't need to grow anymore. You can't grow anymore. We can always grow, whether it's personal or spiritually. There's always room for growth, and we should never get to the point where we're complacent with the person we are, personally or spiritually. Because if you get complacent, you're not feeding yourself. You're not feeding yourself spiritually or mentally or personally. You're going to wither away. You're going to lose that progress you've made as you've gone through life.
If you're not growing, you die. That's what I used to always hear. If you're not growing, you die. Real, I think you said so much to unpack, to go with what JG said too. I think if you think about fun, right? Like you said, fun can change when you're on a different walk, on a different journey, on a different growth mindset. And to add to kind of Spencer, your question about the beginning, like do you cut people off? There's been times like when I was building the business that I had a dedicated meeting on Thursdays that I was always there. So the people that knew I was there did not give me a hard time, but the people that was like, nah, bro, it's Thirsty Thursdays, man, go and ditch that, come over here. It's like, nah, I can't do that. And so if they kept giving me a hard time, I'm like, I know you're not supporting the growth that I'm on. I got to limit how much, because my fun is different now. My fun is not Thirsty Thursdays. My fun is going around these people and being associated, right? And you mentioned as well that sometimes like it's lonely that you don't really know, but God's always going to place those people in your life that's growing with you that can be there so you're not alone on that, because there's always someone growing and you just run into them and God's going to put them there for you so that way you don't have to be alone. You can understand what it will look like to have running buddies when it comes to growing. Like it's never by yourself. It may seem like that at first because the people you were with, you left them. Like if you're running around the track and, you do like a 400 and you running like a 45 second like the Olympics and they running like 72 seconds, you left them away in the dust. But then you're going to find out that there's some other 45-second runners too that come out of nowhere. You're like, oh, you right here too. Like God put those people there. And then as well, you kind of talk about, it's just, man, I was just thinking about all of this you were saying, but he talked about like bringing everybody with you, right? And like what's going to happen when like everything grows, right? God's always going to test you with what you have, make sure you handle what you have so you can handle so much more. And so I always know that God's never going to give me too much to handle. He's going to give me just enough to make sure I can properly handle it until I can grow. So that gives you an opportunity to already treat it like you have, like if the call has 20 people, you can treat it like the call got 100 people. So that way what God's already handing to you, you already know how to handle that. So when it does grow, you're already ready. And so but that thought process is a growth mindset. Like a fixed mindset would be, I'm stuck at 20. I got to think like 20 people here. Nah. Let's think like you got 100 people there. Let's think you got 1,000 people with you. Let me start thinking like I'm mentoring 40, 50 people at one time, not just 4 or 5, not 6. My time is important. So I can't allow you to hold up my time or something because I got another meeting. Whether I got another meeting or not, put the boundaries on as if I do. Because if I know how to manage that now, then I know how to manage that when I do have 50 people. Or I know how to manage the call when 100 people on the call if I know how to make sure everybody's speaking. And it's like having that growth mindset that, God's going to make sure you're ready for that. But you can also help yourself too by having a growth mindset that, hey, I already see what this call is like 100 people. I've already been working. God's testing me with the 20. I've proved that I can handle that. So when the 25, 30, 40 come, I'm ready for it because I've done what I need to. I prepared in the season. I planted the seeds that I needed that God put in me to make sure that I'm ready for that. So like all the man, you were just talking. I was like, "Ooh, this is good. This is good."
And to that point, like, treating the call as if, even though there's maybe 20 people on the call, you're treating it like there's 100 people on the call. Like a subtle thing that BZ that you would do on those calls is, and it probably wasn't for this purpose, but one subtle thing that I think helped with the growth of it was you always acknowledged new members. You will always acknowledge new participants to the call that it was their first time. And you would ask, oh, it's your first time? And then you would read them the rules and you would say, we appreciate you pulling up and joining this call with us. And it was like, there was a period of time where it seemed like you were doing that every week. And it started to stand out more to me at that time because I was like, oh, wait, like this is almost like he's like manifesting the growth of this group right now because he's acknowledging these new participants. And every time he does it, it seems like there's another new participant next week and then another one. And then it'd be like two more, some weeks it would be like 2 or 3 more. And it went on like that for the period. It went on like that for about a month, probably more at one stretch. And so I think, to Shah's point, when you are conducting yourself with the expectation of growth, it kind of, you kind of make room for that to happen. And we saw that in real time with the calls on Wednesday.
That's a crazy connection, bro. I wasn't even looking at it like that. But I will say this. This is so crazy we even having this conversation. At the retreat, James told me, make sure you record the interviews or whatever, right? I'm like, man, I'm not doing that. Like, I'm off socials. I ain't doing none of that, right? And when I think about that, it just brought me back to a conversation me and Jerron had, and it really connects to exactly what you and Shah just talked about. Let you go, Spence. But I told Jerron, like, let me break it down a little bit different. God is the best trainer and coach that anybody could ever have, okay? He knows who to sub out your life. If somebody needs to be subbed out, he knows how to sub somebody in. He knows how to call time out. He knows how to practice with you. He knows how to train you. And he knows how to show you the film. And he knows how to help you win championships. And he knows how to show you that you can lose too, right? But what I remember telling Jerron was like, man, and this is so weird that I'm even saying this now, but my dad's a landscaper. So I always relate this analogy to God. Before in the fall, we have to aerate our lawns. Okay. If you want some green grass, you have to aerate the lawn. That's pretty much putting holes in the ground, put seeds in it, and then follow instructions. Okay. The fixed mindset person is going to focus on where the grass growing, where the grass going at. Like it's growing over here. Let me water it over here. Let me put some more seeds down over on this side because it's too many weeds. Let me do more. But it's like, no, did you follow the basic instructions that you was given in the beginning? And did you repeat those things consistently? And most of the time, people that cut grass consistently have the best looking grass. Now, they can switch up the pattern based on what they're seeing, based on their fruits. And what I'm saying is, based on the fruit that you get, you're going to have to adjust some things because the presentation may look different to whoever drives by to see it. And it's so important. And that's why, JG, when you said, BZ, you was giving these instructions to anybody new, it's like, yeah, because that's what God told me to do in the beginning. And if I stop, the experience, the presentation is not going to be the same. And that's why it's like the fixed mindset person is not going to focus on the instructions for a long duration of time. It just may be a couple days in the beginning of the season. It's snow. It's like, man, forget that grass. Like, I don't even want to look at it. And it's like, nah, what did the instructions tell you to do? And you could do 2 things. You can purchase the items that you need to follow the instructions, or God may send you somebody that'll just come do it for you. Pay the monthly subscription so they could come by and do it for you. But you're not even paying attention to the instructions of the subscription that he's trying to give you. And that's why I think it's so missed when people are growing. It's like the details, man, they are very simplistic. And if we follow them, we all can grow and benefit. And that's why I think I get so frustrated with people that just may not just be on a different pace than some of us, you know what I'm saying, which is fine. But I think I get frustrated when it's like, what do you mean you don't understand? Like, this is very simple. This is not difficult, but to them, they're just looking from a whole different perspective, and I have to respect it. But I also need to know that that is not my lawn. I can't go to neighbor's house and try to, unless you're paying me to help you out. I can't go over there and do what you need done unless you want to come out here and let me show you a couple times, and you got to do it on your own. And I think we talked about that before too, but I just wanted to highlight that because I wasn't even paying attention to that, Jerron, at all, but that definitely makes sense now. So I appreciate you highlighting that.
And I just wanted to add on, I commend JG and Shy for, pointing this out, but you really adapted the yet mentality with the Wednesday call. You stopped really focusing on how many people are on there and started just focusing on the message. I don't have 100 people on here, but I don't have 100 people on there yet. It's not that you're not going to get there. You're not focusing on that number. You're just focusing on, I'm not there yet, but I'm going to get there. I'm going to keep growing. I'm going to keep putting in the work and having God use me the way he wants me to. And I'm eventually going to get there. I'm just not going to get there yet. So I commend you for the Wednesday call, and I'm happy to see the growth that's happened for me in just a year.
Appreciate it, man. Glory to God, bro. And another thing, like you focusing on a number, but are you understanding that you're not ready for the number? Like, come on. God is telling you, like, hold on, you're not ready for that. Look how you acting. Look what you're doing. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, I could take that and be frustrated, or I can keep growing, bro. But my fault, JG, go ahead.
And look, peep this, like if we just, because we keep saying number, and that I'm glad because I was just about to say, you looking at the number, you could have 20 people in there, but 2 of them different. So are we stuck on the number, or are we looking at are we looking at growth in a different way? Yeah, like the number still may be 20, but if you got 2 to 5 new people in there, you know what I'm saying? You're growing. Like the group is growing because not everybody's in there every week. So if you're bringing new people in, that's still growth, even though the number still be at 20, but you have new people joining. So like, growth isn't static. It shows up in different ways for sure. Not just tangibly, but just, you could be looking for one thing and, you're missing progress in another area in your life. I was kind of struggling with that a little bit today, just in a conversation with somebody, just how to articulate that or illustrate that. It's like, you're looking for communication in this way, but there's like 3 things that you've said to me over the course of this conversation where I'm like, these things are communicating what you're looking for, right? So you're just looking for it in a specific place, and because you're not getting it there, you don't think there's any communication at all. So it's just interesting. It's all about your perception.
That's crazy because I wrote that in my notes. My bad, Shy, real quick, man, because what JG is talking about, I wrote, where is it at? Don't measure or compare your growth to someone else's. It doesn't mean that you're not growing just because it's less important or less meaningful or less successful. Don't try to put a value or a number on your growth, because it can be marginal, but it can do wonders for you.
It's your own race. It's your own race. And JG said it perfectly, right? Because a fixed mindset focuses on the number each week, staying at 20. But you with the growth mindset realize, like you said, how significant it is. It's almost like a lesson in how to win friends and influence people, but how significant it is to recognize that it's a new person. The fixed mindset is like, dang, we still at 20. The growth mindset that you have is, man, this is 2 more people's lives who could be changed and who could be healed. And you notice it. And like, that's the significance, right? Because you notice who's been on the call and who's not. And it's like almost as important as somebody's name is noticing that they're on the call for the first time. Someone with a fixed mindset, still at 20. But now I realize that you just, over the past week, we've been at 20, but like JG said, but it's been 2 new people every single call. That's 2 new lives that could have been healed or helped. And you took the time to say, hold on. We got new people on who can possibly heal from this call or any call in the future. Let me go ahead and introduce them to you to the group, but also let you know kind of what this is about. And that's the growth mindset right there. And that's a true growth mindset, especially for this.
Nah, bro, I appreciate y'all, man. Glory to God. And I'm gonna be real with you. Let's take the group call out the conversation. Okay. Let's break this down a little bit more. You refusing to grow. You stand in a fixed mindset. Okay. And I get on people like this all the time. And I get on y'all about it. It's like, bro, you're not growing, so your gift ain't out there. How many people not getting blessed because you ain't started yet? You focus on the number. If I focus on 20 people every week and I miss out on 5 in that day, I just missed my mark. And I chose to stay stagnant. And I think that's what people don't realize is that all of us are different and carry a very, very unique gift. And this is what I was talking about the other day. I was like, I think the growth process aligns with unlocking your gift. That's what I always focus on. This is what I'm talking about. The growth process is a training. It's preparing you to how to develop these habits, atomic habits. We talked about it on a different episode. Spence talked about it's developing you and you're changing and your values are changing, right? When you start understanding that those things are really happening and you take a hold of it and then you really get on board with it, so many people get blessed through you. God is literally flowing through you because you're getting in touch with what you was created to do on this earth. And that's what I love so much about people that are willing to grow, because it's like you're a selfless person. You care about how you impacting other people. And what people fail to realize is as you continue to grow, you start finding these pockets of time to do other things that you never realized that you could even do because you just thought it wasn't possible. You know, Whitney Houston, impossible. You know what I'm saying? I had to throw that in there. I had to throw that
Hey
in there.
now.
I'm just saying. But
Oh
bro,
my
like,
gosh.
I'm serious. It's so impossible to so many people, bro. Like, and it's like, how do we help others grow while growing? Is it even possible to do that? Yes or no? That's something that we really need to ask ourselves, because we could spend a lot of time trying to change somebody's mind and get frustrated and upset. But it's like you're growing individually as well. So you can either choose to help them and spend some days and some years with them. But who else need a blessing out here, man? So many others people that can be served and helped. So what do y'all think about that? Like, how do we handle those situations? Or did I just ask the question I asked in the beginning of the pod again, just in a different way?
I think it's a different question because I had this conversation today with someone who's their whole life they've had someone in their life that looked at them this one way or had this negative perspective ever since like they've known them in a sense. And the question was kind of since like, can they even be changed? And the answer is that's not up to you to change them. It's up to you to be the example though and showcase that for them to change. If you can be the example of someone that's growing and the way you carry yourself and you don't react to the things that you used to react to that made them do that, and you say, hey, I'm growing and changing how I look at stuff, just you being the example, people are watching. People are always watching. And that one particular person is watching. You may not even think it. There's people every day that looks at our social media. We probably don't even post nothing. But there's someone that probably check it every single day just to see, like, hey, did they stick to what they said 2 years ago? They still doing that? Are they still growing? And it's just all you have to do is be an example. It's not your job to go and try to change someone if they don't even approach you for that. But by you just being the example, you just changing yourself, living the way that you live, and they see that, they're watching you. And so you just continue to focus on yourself and showing that these things that used to bother you back then, because you had a growth mindset and said, hey, I'm going to grow and learn from that. That's going to cause you to like make them change because they're just seeing by influence in a sense. So definitely, I think it's not our place to try to change them. That's not on us, but it's on us to be an example of someone who has changed and let them just learn by watching us.
Bar alert, bar alert. I see you, Shot. I see you.
Telling y'all, man, like when you have made significant changes in your life and you are walking closer to the purpose that God has for your life, people gravitate towards you because they see something in you that is, they don't even know how to describe it, but they're drawn to it. And I experienced this when I went with a group to Las Vegas for my boy's 40th birthday. it was like I was just like I found myself in these conversations where I was, one of them was the craziest one. Like we were in this like lounge spot that was in the hotel that we were staying in, and it was right adjacent to the casino. And so we're just sitting in there kicking it or whatever. And one of the girls that was there like just turned to me and she was like, "Are you religious?" And I was like, "Well, what you mean?" And she was like, "Are you a religious person?" And I was like, "Yeah, I mean, I believe in God, if that's what you're asking me." And she was like, I said, "What made you ask that question?" And she was like, "Well, like in America, this, that, and the third, like you guys are a bit more religious." And she was from Wales. So she was saying it was just way different out there. And so she was just kind of curious just about how we view religion and things like that in America, because she was sharing her experience with me out there. And like, it was just a very interesting conversation, but the way it started kind of threw me off because that was like, we weren't even talking before that. Like we were just sitting in the same area. And we had like, there was like a group, it was like a group of women that were from Europe. Like most of them from the UK, but she just happened to be from Wales. And then like we were sitting in the same hotel. So we saw them out by the pool and just, we had talked to them earlier and then we bumped into them later. And so I think I had just got there and sat down and I was like talking to a couple of my boys or whatever. And she just hit me with like, "Are you religious?" And that was like that started to happen a lot more frequently after that. And it was something that I couldn't ignore anymore. Like I thought that was a one-off. But I say that to say, like, when even people that don't know you can sense something about you. If you're like been going through the process of growing spiritually, especially, and you made significant changes, that's something that kind of stands out to people who don't even necessarily know you as well. And I've had conversations with closer friends who have, said things that they've noticed about me and changes that they've noticed and stuff like that. And it's just kind of like, it ain't really something that I put too much thought into when I'm just out. It's just, I feel like I'm the same person. I'm just doing different things, And so I know that I have changed. I know things about me have changed, but I still feel like JG, like I like to joke around. I like the things that I like. I still have the same interests. There's just things that I don't do anymore. It's almost like confirmation along the way that like you're moving in the right direction, because so many people, whether I know them well or don't know them at all, or whatever the case may be, have commented. And so I think those are just little messages of confirmation from God. Like you're doing what you're supposed to be doing. Like you're moving in the direction that and you're right where I want you, kind of thing. So, but it's noticeable, man. Like it's noticeable even again to people that don't know you. Like there's something that people are drawn to, and it's not you. Like it's not me. It's like the God inside me, where I've just kind of surrendered my heart and my life in that way, and He's just taken over and using me in those circumstances to share with others and maybe encourage them to take on the same, or to surrender in the same way.
That's real, JG. I appreciate you sharing that, man. With the confirmation piece, I'm gonna ask you a question, then we're gonna get into Spencer's notepad, see what's on there today. What people that's trying to adjust their mindset, right, and kind of get on the same page as some of us that's going through life, that are knowing that we're growing, but they just may not be in certain alignment, but they're not getting confirmation along their growth journey during the process. What do we think is needed to help people get to that mindset?
Man, sorry guys. Because again,
No, go ahead. Go ahead,
this is
JG.
something that like this is something that I'm trying to help someone see, but I'm not able to communicate it effectively. And so I found myself just kind of waiting, like not really responding. But like, it's easier for me to say in the position I'm in now than it would have been like a year ago. But for me, just from experience, I would say press in. Like if you're trying to grow spiritually, but you don't feel like you're hearing from God, or you don't feel like God is speaking to you and you feel far from Him, I would say do everything it takes until you hear His voice. Like, I would just put everything to the side that could possibly hinder that and press in. Like, spend more time in the Word. Wake up earlier in the morning to make sure that you're starting your day in prayer or in the Word or both. Fast. Like, do everything you can to quiet your flesh and just ask to hear God's voice and ask for discernment from the Holy Spirit to recognize that it is God's voice and not just outside noise or your own thoughts or the voice of somebody else that may be in your head for whatever reason. Because the more that you press in and the more that you throw everything off or you throw everything aside that could get in your way of connecting with God, he will respond. If you don't feel like he's responding right now, there are so many different ways that God can speak to you. And I would just pursue each and every one of those. You got to be hungry. It's almost like desperation. And maybe it is. Maybe it's not even an almost. Maybe it's just you are desperate to hear from him. And only you know what that looks like individually in your life, right? And you can't force her to fake it. But if you're genuinely like, I need to hear your voice, like, speak to me, and you don't hear from him, all right, I'm fasting. I might just do a 24-hour fast and just deny myself in that way so that I can hear from you. But whatever it takes to press in and draw nearer to him, like, that's what I would suggest people do. And just make sure that your heart posture is genuine and you have that hunger to hear from. He will respond. There's no doubt in my mind he's going to respond to you. It may not be, to revisit this point, it may not be in the way that you are looking to hear from him, but he's going to speak to you through something or someone during that period of time that you are genuinely seeking him out in that way.
And I think, like, that's kind of the conversation that's kind of to the question too, is just like, even for people that don't believe, like, what posture do they need to show to get help, bro? Like, what else is there to do? Whether it's spiritual growth, professional growth, personal growth, like, how do we help them? Like, it's a lot to that, man. And a lot of things that JG's saying coincide with a lot of other places of growth, man. So that's why I'm trying to ask him, like, what's needed to help people understand that they need to grow, and how do we help them see it?
There are obstacles in the way of every goal, whether it's spiritual, whether it's like athletic achievement, whether it's trying to get a promotion at your job, whether it's starting your own business. There are obstacles to every goal that you set for yourself. And it's just up to the individual what they're willing to do to achieve that goal. And a lot of times it's giving things up. Like, you have to give up things that you may be used to doing, that could get in the way of you achieving your goals. Off the top of my head, the one I'm thinking about, I don't know why this is standing out to me, but one of the ones that really resonated with me while I was still hooping competitively was Jason Kidd. Like, if you remember, like, it's funny because the way that I came across this story was when he got a DUI. I think he was the Knicks coach, and he had just been named the Knicks coach or something like that. And unfortunately, he ended up getting the DUI like 1 or 2 nights after it was announced. And then, like, somehow I came across this story about his playing career and how way back to high school, and he grew up in Cali, Oakland to be specific. So way back in high school, he never went out. He was constantly working on his game. Like, he wouldn't go out to parties. He sacrificed a lot of social activities and a lot of opportunities to kind of just be out with the fellas or with his friends or talking to girls, whatever the case may be, because he wanted to work on his craft because he had a goal in mind. Like, he's one of the greatest point guards to ever play the game of basketball because of it. Because he was willing to make those sacrifices all of those years leading up to his NBA career, and probably continued most of them during his career, like, that is what positioned him to be an NBA champion and one of the greatest players at his position to ever play the game. If you ever watch Jason Kidd play, his talent was evident. Like, he was already talented, but that wasn't enough for him. He had the desire to the point where he was willing to lock in and block out any possible distractions at the time even the distractions he saw his friends getting involved in and indulging in, he blocked all of that out to chase his goal, and he achieved it. And at the time, he was willing to sacrifice the feeling of isolation and missing out on all the fun people were having, because to him, it was more important to play in the NBA. So again, like, that might not be like a major obstacle to some, but it was an obstacle in his mind that he had to remove in order to achieve his ultimate goal.
I think a lot of it too has to do with kind of going back to what you mentioned for a lot of this, JG, especially with the pressing in part, is like, if your belief is low when it comes to stuff, growth or anything, get around people who have high belief. Like, it help you believe, right? So that's going like the association. Like, if you're like, I can't figure this out, or it's just, my spiritual walk isn't really moving the way I want it to do, and like you're struggling to press in the mornings and getting the word yourself or getting that quiet time, get around believers that have high belief. Get around community groups, get around your church partners, get around whoever, and find people who have high belief. Because when they have high belief, you'll start developing belief. Because you have other people who will start believing in you well before you believe in yourself, and that's okay sometimes. But you have to understand that and be aware of that. Be like, man, my belief is low, or my drive is low. Let me get around people who have high drive. Imagine, since we're talking basketball, imagine all the times that people had the opportunity to work out with Kobe, but they just said Kobe's workouts are too hard. I can't work out. Just imagine if they said, you know what, I have the belief that I can work as hard as Kobe. And imagine if they did. Imagine how better players would be. And I know I think there's some stories. I don't know if it was Kwame Brown or a couple of other players that had an opportunity to work out with Kobe, and they just like, they'd rather go party or something like that instead while Kobe was in the gym. Imagine if they built on his belief. Just imagine the growth they would have had. And sometimes that's what it is. Like, find that association that has high belief or that has high standards in whatever you're trying to grow in, and learn from them and soak from them and get everything you can from them, because that will just in return, you will start feeding off of that. Like, it's just changing your association to where you want it to be. Like, you're directing your attention to what's most important. And it's easily to find that. There's always people around you. You just have to be aware and wanting to. But too many times, going back to that fixed mindset, people don't want to go look for that. People don't want to go to a different group. They think they can figure it out themselves. And this is, like I said, you're where you are because of the way you've always been thinking. That's why you're stuck there.
Man,
preaching,
I
man.
love that. I love everything you just said, bro. Oh my gosh.
That's a bar.
Sure.
That's part of that growth mindset, and surrounding yourself with people that inspire you. If you surround yourself with people that believe, you're going to start believing that energy is, that positive energy is contagious. So it's going to rub off on you, and it's going to start feeding your spirit. And you're going to start believing that you can do the things that you're trying to grow in, the areas and the goals that you have set for your life.
I'm not going to dissect it too much, fellas. It's a lot here. We could keep going, man. What stood out the most in what everybody just said is just like, to Spence's, Rashad, and JG's points, all of y'all, let's just stay on the basketball thing, any sport, anything, really. Any person in a movement at any time, just think about those people: Michael Jordan, Kobe, Martin Luther King, President Obama, whoever. It don't even matter for real. Whoever you think has the growth mindset, that's a GOAT. What if they stopped what they was doing to get everybody on the same page as them? Where would they be?
Yeah, they wouldn't be a GOAT.
Come on, man.
Definitely not.
And bro, it just hit me so differently just now. Here, listen to y'all talk. It's like the fact that they didn't stop to help a lot of people. They were able to bless a lot of people with what they did, because that's more inspiration than anybody could ever want, and so to speak. Now let's flip it. Now look at Jesus. He did help everybody, but he had a superpower, bro. Let's just be real. It's different. We're not perfect. We're not that. And that's what we got to realize, is that we are humans, bro. And we have to understand that it is okay to grow. But when you start to outgrow others, you can't just sit around and try to wait on them to catch up, bro. You are not God. Stop trying to be God, man. I think that's Travis Scott's song. And one of his songs, like, he really does say that, bro.
He definitely does. Well, yeah. Stop trying to be God.
It's just so much in there, man. But no, I appreciate y'all for saying that. Right now, we're gonna switch it up.
Wait. Don't hold on. Don't, because I want to just keep that going a little bit. So like let's clarify and break it down like the analogy you're using. So like Michael Jordan, Kobe, etc. They had to become Kobe. They had to become MJ, and then the people around them benefited once they became what they were working towards. So the same with you. You have to become who you are meant to be, who you are called to be, who you are purposed to be. Okay, so that requires you working in obscurity, right? Not having too many people around you while you're building towards who you were created to be. And then once you get to that point, you can bless those who are around you. You can't bless them on the way. You're not there yet. You haven't reached that. You haven't reached the potential of who you were created to be yet. So on the way, you gotta kind of focus on you. And it's not a selfish thing, because when you get to where you're going, you're going to bless others once you get there.
Bar alert, bar alert. I tell you, JJ, man, JG, you got one right there.
Man, let God be the GM. He gonna bring whoever he needs to Chicago. He gonna bring whoever he need. The people that you started with that was in the locker room drinking, smoking, doing whatever, they're not gonna be there when you won 6 rings, bro. Like they just not gonna be in the same locker room. But no, way to break that down, JG. That well done, sir. Well done, brother.
What's the standards? What's the standards?
All right, man. So the new favorite segment, man, Spencer's notepad. All right, Spence, tell the people what you got on your notepad, man.
First off, shout out to my wife. I didn't do this last time, but shout out to my wife. It was her idea, because she listens to the pod, and in the beginning I would have so many thoughts and processing things through my mind as y'all were talking, and I couldn't say what I was trying to process as eloquently as I would like. So shout out to her telling me to write my thoughts down to y'all talking so I can help me process. But starting off, I have definition of growth, process of developing and maturing physically, mentally, spiritually. Talking about my growth is the word for 2020. We talked about growth doesn't always have to be big or small. It can be marginal and still be appreciated. Don't measure or compare your growth to someone else. And doesn't mean that your growth is less important, meaningful, or successful. Being aware of the situations you put yourself in to grow, whether it's people, situations, your job, different variables, just being aware and making sure they're not hindering you from growing and making you become stagnant and becoming complacent and thinking that you don't have to grow anymore. There's always room for growth. And we kind of talked about this here recently, just a few minutes ago. How do we grow? But JG mentioned you can't inspire others until you finish growing, and you can start to bless others once you started walking in your purpose that God has for you. That was a bar. I tell you, I'm gonna think about that for a few days. If you're not constantly feeling like yourself, you'll wither and away physically, mentally, and spiritually. I think Shad said that if you're not growing, you're dying. We talked about the growth mindset, embracing challenges, learning from others, that provide feedback, criticism, perseverance through setbacks, finding your inspiration through others, surrounding yourself with other believers, railing, adapting that yet mentality with the Wednesday call. Spiritual growth, leaning more about what God and leaning more into God's word. Well, no matter where you start at as a Christian, there's always room for growth. And to grow, you have to dig in the word to feed your spirit. Growth can also mean practicing that standard. Once you've grown or you finish growing in this area, if you're not practicing that growth you've developed, for an example, with your faith and your spiritual walk, and you get to a situation and you have to have that faith in God, and He's going to see you through this situation, and you fall back into your old habits, you're not practicing that growth that God has put you through. So practicing the growth when you're presented with real world situations, how to deal with growth in terms of relationships, how how everybody can't grow with you. Let's see. JG mentioned he still keeps communications open with people that he's outgrown, but it's just less frequent. Real struggles with that. Shy mentioned that the 3 minute, 3 hour, 3 day people can be fluent. They can go from 3 day to 3 minute, 3 minute to 3 day. It's fluent. It changes depending on what season you're in. Talked about our values changing as we grow. Growth is like an area of rebirth, and at the beginning it can feel isolated because what your value, what your standards are, is changing. So it's going to feel isolated at the beginning because God is preparing you for a new season. Real mentioned 99% of your, I think I got the percentage right. 99% of your thoughts are negative.
88.
88. I don't know where I got 99%. I was writing, trying to.
Some people though, for some people, never know.
Yeah, hey, you never know. God will place people in your life when you're growing. Talked about the yet mentality with Rail and the call, and how JG mentioned the subtle introductions when there was always new members. The new members on the call is growth, even though we're still at 20. It may be 1 or 2 new people, and that's still growth just because the total number didn't change. There's still new people on the call. Rail mentioned how many people are missing a blessing because you haven't started using your gift yet, because you haven't grown. Shy mentioned it's not up to you to change someone, but up to you to be the example and standard. JG mentioned people gravitate towards you when God is leading you on your purpose, even the people that don't know you. But what do people need for confirmation to get that growth mindset? JG mentioned put everything to the side, eliminate all distractions, and get more rooted into the word, prayer, fasting, get more in touch with God because he will always respond in some form or sign. Shah says surround yourself with high believers. If your belief is low, surround yourself with high believers. And the last little bar that JG said, you have to become who you are meant to be in your purpose. And once you have reached your purpose, you can start to bless others.
Hey man, round of applause for Spencer's notepad, man. Gotta give it up. Gotta give it up, man. Gotta give it up for Spencer's notepad, man. Love that segment.
Look, Spence about to
Shout
be able
out
to
to
write
the
a
wife,
book,
man.
Bro, Nicole said that. I'm like, all right.
Yeah, she mentioned that at dinner.
Yeah, I was like, oh yeah, she right. Cause I only pay attention to Spence is like observation skills when he's watching sports. Bro, if you ever with Spence, it's nothing gonna stop him from watching the game, bro. Him and Dip, I swear, I'm like, I've never seen this level of observation skills in my life. And when she said that, it clicked. I'm like, yo, she's right. But the wives always right, fellas. Gotta own it. Gotta own it, man. So shout out to Nicole, man. Appreciate you.
Spence one of the first people I ever seen with the quad box on the phone and just keeping up with all 4 games at the same time.
Hey,
on a little phone screen quad box is crazy. I've never seen that from nobody else before.
Hey, man.
We appreciate you, Spence. We appreciate you. Anybody got anything else before we get into the encouragement for the week?
I can't say enough how I love to like surround yourself with high believers. Man, like that really resonates with me, man. Cause it's like you, if you are feeling like you're in a period of like low belief and you're trying things that aren't working out, like that is so important. And it just speaks to how vital community is. And like, you got to be involved in some way with community. It doesn't have to be a large community, but like being around other people that, if we're just talking about as far as your faith is concerned, like being around other believers is just so important. Like you cannot be isolated in your faith walk. It's just not easy to do. And it's not how we were created to be anyway. So like we are created to be in a community. And so that is a major thing for believers to just be in community with other believers so that they can encourage you and build you up in your faith when you're struggling to encourage yourself. Sure.
Facts. All right, man. Well, we'll get into the encouragement for the week. Anybody want to start us off?
I'll definitely say if you're unsure if you have a growth mindset or a fixed mindset, Just take a step back, just evaluate how you react to things. See if it's helping you get better or if it's making you worse, or if it's helping other people around you get better or get worse. And if it is fixed, figure out how can you adjust it? How can you make sure that you do have a growth mindset? Because when you have that growth mindset, things start to change. And you're not stuck in your ways. You're not stuck with where you are because you're making a decision to say, you know what, I'm going to have a positive mental attitude. And I'm going to figure out how I can continue to get better in whatever I'm dealing with. So just assess if you think you have a fixed mindset. Even if you think it's slightly there, say, hey, you know what? If there's a hint of fixed mindset, how can I make this growth? How can I turn this to a growth mindset? And if you can't figure that out, surround yourself with other people that do. Again, like JG was just talking about, the belief. Surround yourself with people who have a growth mindset in that area and learn from them.
Man, the reason I'm smiling is because, Shai, you took what I was about to say. So I'm like, man, I knew I should have went first. But for me, my encouragement of the week as I pivot is, as you're growing, don't compare yourself to your growth to others. Appreciate where you are on your path in your life, on your highway of life, and don't compare it, whether it's marginal growth or big growth. Don't compare. Just appreciate the growth that you have made and the progress that you are continuing to make.
Yeah, mine would be, don't be afraid of obscurity. Now, that doesn't mean isolation, but some of the best growth happens in obscurity. And that just means being out of the spotlight or away from attention. And I just want to point to the story of David, who's one of the best stories of growth and obscurity in the Bible. He was one of several brothers. I can't remember. I think he had 2 or 3 older brothers. I can't remember. But he was a shepherd. His brothers were in the army, in Israel's army. And when the time came to appoint the next king, he was initially overlooked. But he had been growing in obscurity. Like, one of the craziest parts of his story is that he killed a lion and a bear, but he was just by himself. Like God was with him, but nobody else was around to confirm, like, yeah, no, he did get that bear out of there. Like, no, like nobody else saw it. We just had to take him at his word. Like, he said, man, he's talking to a giant. He's telling this story to a giant. This is the first time anybody's hearing this story. Hey, Goliath, I ripped a bear open. Like, I killed a bear and a lion because they were trying to mess with my sheep. Who are you, my guy? Like, why are you talking crazy? Like, so, but the point of this is he was doing that and nobody was around to like build up the so-called legend of David. He was just growing. He was walking close with God. He was also a pretty dope artist in his own right, but he was nice with the harp, the lyre, they might call it in the word. So he was nice with that, but he grew in his skills with the lyre or the instrument to welcome God's presence. So he's growing as a shepherd and all the skills that it takes for that. He's growing strength-wise. He was nice with the slingshot, as we know, and he knew how to welcome God's presence. So he was doing all of that in obscurity so that when his time came and when God said it was time for him to step into the next phase in his life, he was ready. He was ready to do so. So don't be afraid of obscurity because that could be where you experience the most growth.
I think my encouragement for the week is probably speaking to the people that, to Spencer's point, do compare. And you may be comparing due to some trauma and pain that you've experienced in your life. I would just encourage you to still focus on what season you're in currently in your life and identifying what is working and what's not working. And if you don't know, you kind of got to make an abrupt change at some point, and you got to be willing to do that. But I think a lot of the times we focus on what's going on in the next car on the highway, and we're not just focusing on our car. And we got to understand that in order for us to grow, we got to look in the mirror, and we can't duck it. We really got to understand what we're looking at in the mirror, and how can you break the mirror to continue to grow and just power through and press on, right? Just encouraging you that once you start growing, it is people waiting on you to start growing that you can't see right now that will definitely align with you and help you on your journey. And not only that, there are people waiting on you so they can be blessed. So if you ever get in a situation to where you feel like you're comparing and nobody's ever experienced what you have, think about the people that are waiting you to help get blessed. That's the only way, the real way to look at life. You're trying to help people throughout life. You can't tell me one person that don't want to help people in this world. And then when you get to the top or whatever that may looks like on your growth journey, try to help people and give them perspective. So if you are getting a situation to where you become Kobe or Michael Jordan or whoever, it's going to be people in the room that you're going to be able to help and bless. But just take your time on the journey and be able to tell others about your growth journey, because it is important. I know I always echo that every single week about just telling your story. And especially if it's a growth story, it can inspire and motivate so many other people. So again, we appreciate you guys for tuning in to episode 8 about growth. Again, if you guys ever want to join us on our podcast, please tune in to our TikTok page, YouTube page, or our Instagram page and let us know if you would like to join us on our podcast or ever have feedback. Again, we appreciate you guys for tuning into another episode of Wholesome Thinking, and we hope you have a great weekend.